Hi guys, I want to preface this by saying please do not comment or reply unless you've played the max difficulty on Helldivers 2 because frankly, you don't know what you're talking about and I don't care to hear from you unless you've played max difficulty. And I only say this not to be rude, but every time I've put out a Helldivers video, I get people in the comments that clearly have never played above difficulty 4 thinking that they know what's up when when you just don't. Anyway, let's get started. 5 reasons why I quit Helldivers 2. Number 1, the progression and lack of content. I think when you first start this game, unlocking the weapons, gaining medals, and progressing through difficulties, it all feels pretty good. But once you've hit the max on all of those things, most of it just kind of becomes pointless. The medals cap at an absurdly low amount, and you can't convert them or really buy anything unless you buy war bonds, and unless you mindlessly grind for those, then you have to pay, which, you know, it is what it is, right? But I don't understand why there isn't some sort of medal sync or conversion for medals, because eventually you're gonna buy all the war bonds and the medals just sit there, so it's like pointless currency to have in that game. Also, if I have to buy progression, that's not really progression. Most of the war bond stuff isn't even good, so I'm buying war bonds to essentially not use any of the weapons or use the armor with the perks that like really aren't intriguing enough to warrant a purchase. So what actual content is there? None. So what exactly am I progressing towards? Nothing. Which is where gameplay will carry a video game. And if the gameplay is good, then the progression doesn't matter. For example, Night Rain, that's one game where like I don't care that it doesn't have new content. I can just keep playing Deep in Night, and for me, I'm totally fine with it. It's just a great game for me. I like the gameplay here for Helldivers. For the most part, I'll get to that later, but what else do you have in terms of progression? Well, we have an ongoing story, so it never finishes, but that's a good segue to my second point. Number 2, the story. I think one of the coolest things about this game is how we all kind of cooperate and progress together, and there's just a common goal for everybody to achieve, and there's that story element where you're just continuously playing. You kind of have a reason to come back. However, it's inherently clear that there's objectives that are impossible to complete, and it's intentional. So now you're just breaking immersion and you're turning one of the strongest points of the game into being a weak point. Like why am I going to engage in the major orders when it's basically predetermined, or it's just something that's like doesn't even really matter? And I'm not saying that all objectives are impossible, but like it's very apparent when they're trying to steer the story a certain way and you just give me the illusion of choice and it's just whack as fuck. Like stop trying to hide it and just fucking come out and say it, right? Like this mission is impossible, blah blah blah. It's painfully obvious when the planet liberation just moves quickly sometimes, and the other times it's just really fucking slow. And then the whole change that they did where if you have a bunch of Helldivers on one planet and like it moves slower for some reason, like what the fuck is that about? And for the record, when I'm playing the hardest difficulty, how the fuck am I only contributing like 0.0025% to a planet's liberation? Like there's literally no reason to play this difficulty, because once you're capped, the extra XP doesn't matter. Once you're capped at medals, it doesn't matter. The materials don't matter once you're capped on upgrades. And this also ties into point number 1, because you don't even really get rewarded for progressing through those difficulties that like after a certain amount of time. Like if I had the option to have a greater impact on liberations, or even having the ability to do some crazy missions, that would be awesome. And it could lead to having some sort of like elite super soldier players, you know, in the community that can do specific challenges to unlock a buff, or like, you know, unlock like more lives for people to use, just like something cool like that, right? But back to the story point, it's also demotivating to even do anything, because they were literally just ass pull story beats to retake entire planets or like even entire sectors. So when you do that, you break immersion. It also becomes very apparent because once you realize that they can't let you take out any of the factions completely in the game, because they need them for gameplay reasons, right? One being that people want to fight them at any certain time, and obviously for story reasons. So it's like, okay, so it's literally like, why am I playing this game? It's definitely not for the fucking story, because it's pointless. Like, one of the big selling points is just like a fake illusion. It's like those games that have story choice matters. It's just smoke and mirrors. So for me, the gameplay is literally the only saving grace for this game. And, you know, honestly, number 3, the gameplay and weapon balance. Most of the weapons of this game are fucking useless, and worst of all, the flamethrower, in my opinion, is still pretty fucking weak, and that should be amazing versus the bugs. It should be a no-brainer to take them on those missions, but I literally don't. Any of these weapons are viable in lower difficulties, but in any of the non-baby modes, these weapons are equivalent to just throwing the game. The armor penetration mechanic is pointless. Like, why am I going to take anything that's less than medium penetration? Let's be fucking real. The secondary pistol sway that they added when you're aiming is fucking stupid and asinine. I find myself just using the reliable weapons and stratagems depending on whatever faction I'm fighting. And that's it. Every time I try to switch to a weapon I think that will be cool and fun, I call it in, I pick it up, I shoot it at an important target, and then I'm like, wow, this is fucking terrible. Why did I switch from using the tried and true recoilless rifle? I want these guns to be viable, but they just simply aren't. I don't want them to be overpowered. I just need them to be useful. For example, why the fuck am I ever going to take LMGs as my third when my primary will handle everything just fine? Like, now I'm handicapping myself because that slot could have been used for a weapon that can deal with bigger or more important enemies. And not to mention, now I possibly need to bring another stratagem to cover that weakness. And that stratagem will most likely cost me because it'll be on a cooldown when I really need it. So why risk it? I'm just bringing what I know will work. Another example, the spear. That shit is so good, except when it's too fucking stupid to just go in a straight line and just circles around the enemy. Like, one simple change and it becomes great, but they just refuse to address that. Even the disposable weapons just kind of suck. And it's this weird dichotomy because I think the idea of calling in weapons that are, you know, one-time use is fun because then you can call them even more. But then you just present yourself with 2 extra challenges. And as a side note, total tangent, I like the idea of downsides to weapons because you obviously need that to keep things balanced. But if you want variety in a game that has so many guns, then you need to tune them to be, you know, just good enough to take on the hardest difficulty. And no, you're wrong, because it is possible. Left 4 Dead 2 on expert, I have cleared every single campaign on expert with every single gun, including tier 1s. It's like no gun there is like so bad that you're throwing, you know what I mean? Like, everything is viable. So anyway, back to the point. The 2 challenges are that 1, the cooldown is not ready. 2, that you can actually get to the drop to pick up the weapon and hope to God it didn't get flung somewhere or trapped underneath a body. And I realize that most of you are going to think that these aren't issues, but again, it's because you get so much shit to deal with and higher difficulties that every problem this game has gets exacerbated. And if you're thinking that's a skill issue, I already know you're fucking dented, because the point is that these weapons should not have such huge weaknesses that most people would just choose not to take them. We're talking about weapon variety here, and besides that, you haven't played on difficulty 10. I think a simple change that could see more weapon use is changing the armor pen on most guns. The stratagems are kind of hit or miss, but I do like the variety. The gas ones are just kind of useless to me, in my opinion. More gameplay stuff, patrols literally spawning around the corner, shit spawning when you literally just do a 360, dragon roaches and how they just spammed it when they first came out, multiple of a boss enemy thrown at you for maximum pain in the ass, like striders, impalers, the fucking zombie potatoes. Honestly, just throw all of the illuminate in there because they're fucking boring. Like I said before, the devs do not play at higher difficulties to understand that all their decisions are the most unfun shit to deal with. It's not even overtly difficult. It's just straight up annoying. Like, wow, yes, it is so much fun turning from a quote unquote tactical grunt fantasy mil sim shooting game to being a fucking running simulator to kite the entire planet's armada away from objectives so that my teammates can take care of it. Hopefully they don't draw 3 striders on me while I'm doing that. Even with the new warbond coming out, like, the decision making is so asinine. How is it that we move slower in a robot when there's a sandstorm, but the bugs don't? Did we forget that the tremors affect the bugs? Like, what's the excuse here for letting them move without a movement penalty? The armor and armor perks are pretty surface level mechanics. I was thinking they would have armor set bonuses, or, you know, anything that's cool that you can mix and match armor. You know, like helmets may have something different, but a lot of them just simply don't. It's just the armor and 1 armor perk you get, and that's it. I don't know if this has changed since I last played, but it was straight up a letdown when I encountered it. I basically just had 2 sets of armor that I just swapped between depending on who we were fighting, and both don't really look as cool as I want them to be. I did love the attachment system that they added. It's definitely that was like a great step in the right direction, and I just don't know why they haven't expanded that to other things. And like, they didn't add it to secondaries when like, it was like, what the fuck? I don't get the logic behind that. The optimization of the game fucking sucks. I still get stuck on stupid bullshit that gets me killed. You know, geometry, stratagems bouncing off of shit is asinine, and all the changes that they've made to all that stuff. I could definitely use more missions and mission variety. In my opinion, it kind of has the same problem as Deep Rock Galactic, but I don't think it's as bad. And I'm pretty sure they have added stuff since I last played the game. This is always something that had been in the back of my mind when I was playing the game. And also, this is probably the longest section of the video, but I do want to reiterate here that even though a lot of this shit is super fucking annoying, I think the gameplay loop is actually really pretty good, and that's what really kept me playing. I could see past a lot of these issues, but it definitely can be just a less of a pain in the ass that it needs to be. And it could use weapon variety, particularly in the higher levels. But to me, a lot of these decisions really add to, you know, the next, probably the last point of this video. And I really just wanted to highlight all that stuff in conjunction with the decisions and the last point that I'll talk about later. Number 4, the community. Specifically, the Glaze and the Slop Divers. Holy shit. How much worse are they with the whole dock situation now? Absolutely, I have never seen a community this rabid over a game that is probably mid with so much more potential. Literally glazing for mid, doing illegal shit, and not realizing that they're helping to keep it from just being a better game. Seriously, like, every time I look at critique videos, all I'm thinking is like, oh, that's, you know, those are reasonable takes, right? And then I scroll down and I see a glaze diver just butthurt and not even countering any of the points in the video at all. And it's always some bullshit like, oh, just don't play the game is just fine, you're just bad. And these people, like, I guarantee these people have never touched anything higher than difficulty 4. And honestly, I'm pretty sick of glazers, frankly, and any community. There has to be some shit in the water that we drink, because the current new population of quote-unquote gamers just like love to defend companies and mid-ass games. I don't get it. It's so weird. Before I get to this next point too, I just want to say that, again, I actually could tolerate most of the previous points, and I have been. Again, the gameplay for me has been great, and I think the game at its core is pretty great, but man, if it wasn't for these incompetent dumbass, number 5, the devs, lying about the coyote nerf, trying to force a play style that they aren't even consistent on, staying silent about the docks until it wasn't convenient anymore. Like, seriously, what the fuck? Only listening to their echo chambers, going back on everything they've ever said in their interviews, like promising to not have vehicles or mechs in the war bonds. This is basically behavior. This team, the team that makes Dead by Daylight, they're the exact same people, dude. Same situation. They just accidentally made a good game, but they don't know how to not make it cancerous. Like, they learned nothing from the first exodus of players, the first patch that they had to do, where they basically just like listened to everything that we had to say, and I don't think they will ever learn. It doesn't matter if they come out with another, we're sorry patch. I don't think they're ever going to change. And this alone is the biggest reason on why I'm quitting. I've already been through it with Dead by Daylight. I have been through it with Heroes of the Storm, and I'm just good. I see the warning signs already. And just like with DBD, we're going to see the meat writers start to complain about the very same things that the so-called naysayers were correctly addressing, and will then turn on Arrowhead. By the way, I hope you slop divers are still playing on the old patch. Remember, you guys didn't want any of the fixes that they put out last year. I really hope you're enjoying it. And also, if they do put out an improvement patch, make sure you guys don't update because you love the current state of the game so much. Like, look at this shit. Like, this is how they think. Nobody is asking for a balanced PvP game. We just want shit to be fun and viable. Bring up old weapons and stratagems to be viable. Like for the EMP example here, bro, it's literally changing the AoE value and the time that it lasts. That's 2 numbers to change, and they can't do that. Like, it's not that they can't, it's that they don't want to. Also, the content, quote unquote, the content that they put out is literally just war bonds. Like, what the fuck? It's rare to see any sort of new mission type, or frankly, anything new for that matter, besides some new trash armor, some trash weapons, maybe one really good weapon every 2 war bonds that they're gonna eventually stealth nerf. Like, the dev philosophy of making this a war sim, grunt fantasy bullshit is invalidated by the fact that we're supposed to be super soldiers, and not to mention everything else that people have brought up in the past that break this immersion. And to be honest, I like the somewhat realistic, and honestly the better word is grounded, and I emphasize grounded, approach that the game takes to the shooting, the movement, the explosions, etc. But when you start trying to make it like even more realistic and less fun, I think you're just losing the magic of the game. Somehow they have managed a great balance between, being a mil sim, realism, and being like an arcade shooter, kind of like merging Left 4 Dead 2 and, I don't know, whatever your favorite shooter game is, right? And for whatever reason, this just isn't good enough for a game about killing aliens and bugs traveling around in a ship with almost infinite ammunition. It has to be more real, guys. It just has to. I mean, this is it. The way this game came out and the way the devs are trying to change its focus are just incompatible. And now that I know the devs never learned from their first time being stubborn, that's it. These people are never going to learn. I'm done with this game, and I'm not going to be another number on the Steam charts for this game. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching. I kind of wanted to make this video a little bit more entertaining with the edits and stuff, but to be honest, man, if I think about the effort that I'm putting in to this video, I kind of wanted to match the effort that they're putting into Helldivers, because they honestly don't deserve a really nicely edited and detailed video out of principle. So I'm sorry, but the background gaming video slop is just gonna have to do. But thank you for watching anyway. Again, for the record, I do want to say that I'm sure there are people that don't dick ride this game like it's the last game on earth and just enjoy the gameplay, which I think is fine, and it's probably the healthier way to really play games. Like I said, I think the gameplay loop is very good, and it's what kept me playing for so long, and it was just external factors that really kind of put the nail in the coffin for me. If you want this game to improve though, stop buying shit, stop playing the game. But to be honest, if I'm being real, that's probably temporary, and the only way it's really ever going to be better is having a competent dev team that knows how to create fun, and probably that they aren't owned by private companies. They just have to be independent, and I don't really see that happening.